Today marks exactly 1 year since a deadly inferno engulfed the Usindiso building in Marshalltown in the inner city of Johannesburg, claiming the lives of 76 people. A warning to criminals that law enforcement will no longer conduct business as usual as a memorandum of understanding is signed in Cape Town. The World Health Organization says vaccines to protect against a new strain of mpox will soon arrive in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's just gone 12 o'clock Central African time. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to the Week in Review right here on the SABC News Channel 404. We are coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, and we're ready to review some of our biggest stories from this week. I am Sebenzile Nkambule, and we invite you to join the conversation by giving us a ring. Our studio line is 011-714-0680, 0681 or 0682. Welcome. We start here this afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa has warned all who are involved in crime or have an intent of committing crime that law enforcement will no longer conduct business as usual. He was speaking at the signing of a memorandum of understanding between national government, the Western Cape government, and the city of Cape Town.
In the making for some time, the Memorandum of Understanding will see the SAPS and law enforcement agencies from the province and city of Cape Town battle crime together. Often, different law enforcement units work on tackling the same crime, but have done so in silos. There's hope that combining law enforcement will stem the uncontrolled tide of crime.
It outlines 13 areas of cooperation, including the integration of our technologies, our radio systems, our communications, sharing of crime intelligence and crime data, working together on a command and control level, integrating our services, and giving SAPS access to the technologies we've invested in very substantially. So good for everybody, but better for the communities.
Lauding the approach of the new Minister of Police, the Premier of the Western Cape says since Senzo Mqunu took office, there has been a shift in approach. Open and frank dialogues were held.
Let's try new things, bring in that technology, change the legislation, do other things. Because if what you're doing now is not working, then do something else. Because quite frankly, the criminals are getting away with murder. And that's horrendous. And our citizens are suffering. And hopefully this now is going to really show all spheres of government coming together to really starting to make a difference in building safe society.
The aim is to take the fight against crime to criminals and syndicates with targeted, close working relationships.
We are going out there from this sports field to ensure that we break the back of crime in the city of Cape Town through this joint effort and joint collaboration. We must also leverage technology and data to enhance our crime-fighting efforts by aligning our strategies and coordinating the implementation of our initiative. We will maximize our impact and ensure that our actions are both efficient and effective.
The President says communities across the country and in the Western Cape have suffered long enough.
We are now taking the war against those who extort money. We are taking the war against the construction mafia. We are taking the war against gangsters. We are now going to take you on and make sure that you are brought to justice. The gangsters are tearing our communities apart, and this is costing innocent lives. Businesses are being forced, and they are now tired because they are being forced to pay protection fees and of being under siege from criminals who are destroying their businesses. We are here to show you that we do take your concerns into account and we take them seriously.
The MOU is the official document from where an implementation agreement will be thrashed out within 3 weeks. A similar approach will be followed in at least 3 other provinces. Mariska Botha, SABC News, Bala.
The 2024 Durban, Virginia Air Show is set to take place today. After a 10-year break, the Air Show made an impressive return last year and won the Air Show of the Year award, a significant honor for KwaZulu-Natal. This year's event is expected to be even more exciting, featuring top South African aviation performers, ground exhibits, food stalls and entertainment. SABC News reporter Jade Paulson is live on the scene for more. Jade, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time with us. Give us a sense of what the latest is from Durban.
Well, a very good afternoon to you too. And yes, although it is a very windy day here in Tshwane, a lot of people have come out to experience the aviation air show, which has been really thrilling. We just actually saw a 3-plane formation. I'm going to ask Spoo if he can slightly pan back and show you. And that was an absolutely beautiful formation. And we've been seeing this throughout the course of the day. Star of the show will possibly be Patrick Davidson. He's expected to take to the sky shortly. But let's speak to people and ask them how they're finding the show. Warren, you and I spoke off camera and you were telling me that it's been absolutely exceptional.
Jade, thank you for your time, and having lived in the area for my whole life really and seen the past air shows from home, I've never actually come down to the airport, and wow, what have I missed over the years, because this is something unbelievable. The fact that this is on our doorstep here in KwaZulu-Natal, to the organisers that have put this on, it's outstanding. To see the work that these pilots do in the air, really they've been blessed with a huge talent.
You know, often at times we look at these pilots and we're like, oh well, they went to school, they studied. It's nothing much to it, but when you actually see some of these formations, like a 3-plane pilots, you know, doing all of these beautiful theatrics in the sky, you really do say to yourself like, wow, this is beautiful, this is art, this is a sport.
It certainly is. You know, we think that flying has got to King Shark, get into your flight and go to Cape Town or Joburg. This is a whole new world. It really is unbelievable. They don't miss a beat. I mean, we're just absolutely stunned. They don't miss a beat. They turn all at the right time. They know exactly. They've got it controlled. It's really is unbelievable. Something special.
Thank you for talking to us, Warren. I'm going to see if I can't grab one more individual. Sir, I see you also here. Are you with the family?
Yes, I'm here with my family. In fact, this is my first time for the Durban Air Show, and it's an honor and privilege to be here. In fact, I won tickets with the Chatsworth Tabloid for the show, and I was looking forward to the show the whole entire week, and it's amazing.
And is that your daughter over there?
Yes, that's my daughter, and that's my wife.
Can we chat to her? Maybe she can come a bit closer.
Come through.
Come here, my sweetheart. Hello, my darling. Are you enjoying the air show?
Yeah.
Has it been fun?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you guys enjoy yourselves.
Thank you so
very
much.
much. Thank you. Let's move over to this family here. Hello, you're live on SABC News. Sir, tell me, how have you been enjoying the air show?
It has been really enjoyable lately. It takes a lot of skill for people to fly the way they want to. Stalling out, doing hammerheads, barrels, it takes a lot of technique, which is why I'll always hold these pilots to the utmost respect.
It seems like you know a lot about aviation. Is it an industry that you plan on going into?
Yes, so I want to become an aeronautical engineer one day. Most likely going to Wits. And I want to eventually be able to fly and build my own aircraft.
Lovely. Well, all the best. All the best. Let's see if we can grab one more person. Hello, you're live on SABC News. I see you also, you're out with your family. How has the show been?
It's amazing. It's amazing. I just came out to give the babies the experience, but I'm enjoying it a lot.
So mom is enjoying it more.
I keep telling them to watch, but they're not looking, and I'm just enjoying it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
How has the show been, my baby?
It's good.
Are you enjoying the show?
Yes.
Do you want to be a pilot?
No, I don't.
You don't. Thank you, family. Thank you so much. Well, there you have it. The young and the old have come out to Virginia Airport where they're experiencing the air show, and it's been a fantastic morning. And this show is going to take place until this afternoon. So if you are around this precinct here in eThekwini, do make your way down for some fun in the sky. It's back to you in studio.
Wonderful, Jade. Paul, so thank you very much for your time out at that Durban, Virginia air show taking place. And maybe that little guy might be convinced at the end of the show to become a pilot one day. You're watching The Week in Review. Stay with us. We have more for you on the other side of this. Thank you for staying with us. The MK party has won Ward 45 in Rustenburg in the northwest, marking a significant shift in the region's political landscape. This follows the by-elections held in the area. The wards were previously a stronghold of the ANC, which had maintained control over the area for many years. The MK party's victory in the area is seen as a surprising and notable change, which reflects the shifting sentiments of the voter in that region.
The new kid on the block, Umkhondo Wesizwe Party, contested at the local level in the northwest for the first time. During these by-elections, and they emerged victorious.
The outcomes of Ward 45 and Rustenburg are a huge inspiration and a boost to all the volunteers of Umkhonto Wesizwe Party, and we encourage all the people in South Africa to come and join this otherwise excellent team of black revolutionary and progressive forces who are constituted under the party Umkhonto Wesizwe. It's the most progressive party. Let us go on to reclaim our country, to govern it towards future prosperity.
The by-elections in the province were held in Moretele, Madibeng and Rustenburg. The IEC says the by-election come after the death of 2 councillors and the resignation of 2 councillors.
In total in the province, there were 4 by-elections in 3 different municipalities, 2 in Madibeng, 1 in Moretele, and the other one in Rustenburg. 2 of the by-elections were caused by death of councillors, the Rustenburg one and the Moretele one. Both Madibeng by-elections were as a result of resignation. In Rustenburg, the party that won the by-election was the Umkhonto Wesizwe Party, and the ward was originally an ANC ward.
Meanwhile, political analyst from the Northwest University says the MK party is making notable inroads, viewing this victory as a part of broader shift in the political environment.
I have no doubt that this will influence the strategies of parties. We have already seen within a Northwest context that the ANC is preparing for the 2026 local elections. They want to perform well. They don't want a repeat of the 2024 national and provincial elections. I think the election campaign for 2026 has already started and is going to be a very interesting, dynamic.
The other parties that emerged victorious in the Northwest by election include the ANC and the DA. Solfelo Mohami, SABC News, Mahikeng.
Newly sworn in Umkhonto Wesizwe Party parliamentarian Lucky Montana says his focus will be on serving the country rather than on what he calls narratives based on falsehoods. Montana, who once served as PRASA's chief executive officer, and former Transnet executives Brian Molefe and Siyabonga Gama were amongst 8 members of the MK party who were sworn in as MPs. The trio received some criticism over the state capture cloud that hangs over them. However, Montana maintains that Chief Justice Raymond Zondo didn't make any determination against them. Montana says the 3 executives served during a period in the golden age when SOEs in the country were functional.
The man who was at the helm of PRASA, Lucky Montana, says he won't be entertaining state capture allegations against him that could not be sustained. Instead, his role will be to serve the nation.
We are not coming here to defend ourselves because there's nothing to defend. We are here to say we want to serve the country and we want to use our experience, our knowledge we've gained to benefit the country. But we are walking tall because we are part of the golden generation people who were presiding over state-owned enterprises and public entities when they worked under the ANC government today, under the GNU, these entities are not working.
His main priority will be to help restore the country's state-owned enterprises back to their former glory.
One of my major interests is on state-owned enterprises. I've been involved for a longest period in the restructuring of various state-owned enterprises, from Eskom, Transnet, Safcol. I can mention all of these entities that are there. So when government looks at restructuring the state, looking at restructuring the economy, one of the major things as MK, we want to see the strengthening of state-owned enterprises, because we believe that this represents massive resources in the hands of the masses to change their lives. So that's one area that I want to champion. And then, of course, my experience in the transport sector doesn't start with PRASA. It goes back to the time when I was restructuring the taxi and the bus industry.
One analyst has raised the expulsion of the 18 MK MPs from Parliament. The dismissed MPs claim that they were removed to make way for the newly sworn-in MPs.
But one needs to strike a balance there that the state capture project, some argue that it was a discourse that was framed by the media, because our understanding of political realities is as a result of what is reported to us by the media. And discourse is not framed just for fun. Discourse is meant to influence the public. So one can argue that these people are people who have a history of wrongdoing, and do they qualify now to serve in Parliament on behalf of South Africans or on behalf of their constituency? But I think the party, though, has not resolved the elephant in the room with regard to the grievance that has been lodged by the 18 members.
Something that the MK Party spokesperson refutes, saying the party has brought in the best minds to represent the MK Party in Parliament.
Let's not say that those that were replaced were not professionals in their own right. Let's not create a misconception. All we're saying is we need to field the team that's going to be fit for purpose at this point in time for us as the official opposition. And to do so, especially if you're going against experienced ministers and experienced parties such as the ANC, you need the best of minds so that they don't mislead South Africans. And that's what we're doing here. So if you're a comrade and you've been deployed or redeployed, you need to accept, especially if you care about the party, and especially if you knew that when you were being sworn in, this is exactly what's going to happen.
Meanwhile, Mzanele Manyi has replaced Sihle Ngubane as the party's parliamentary chief whip. Natasha Piri, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The ANC in KwaZulu-Natal says it's reached an agreement with its partners in the Government of Provincial Unity to work together in local government. There were 21 hung councils in the province after the 2021 local government elections. This has led to instability in some municipalities. The ANC hopes the move will enable good governance and improve the delivery of basic services.
3 months since the general elections and the formation of a government of provincial unity that saw the IFP, ANC, DA and NFP opt to work together. The ANC that obtained the third highest number of votes in KZN says the transition has been smooth so far. The focus has now shifted to local government. In the 2021 local government elections, the party lost control of a number of municipalities, which included eThekwini, Msunduzi, Mhlathuze and Newcastle. The ANC says it is now preparing for the 2026 local government elections, and its priority is municipalities who are dysfunctional or underperforming. Party leaders say plans are afoot to establish both a municipal and regional coordination committee that will reconfigure the executive in those municipalities.
The ANC is therefore prepared to enter into a cooperative relationship to constitute a government partnership to administer over the identified municipal council where the two parties have demonstrated voter support. Such a cooperative relationship is aimed at ensuring that the seats collectively allocated to government partnership add up to the majority of seats, and thereby conferring the authority and control of the municipal council to collectively leadership of the parties.
Meanwhile, the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union is suing the provincial secretary for 2 million rand. The lawsuit follows public accusations made by Mtolo in Kokstad, where he made utterances blaming the union for the poor service delivery in government departments. Mtolo says he will meet with Nahau next week to resolve the impasse.
Remember, this thing is family. You get excited, you guys. People of family sometimes fight and they solve their issues the way they solve their issues. Now and Kosatu are family, you see. Then sometimes there will be heated moments. They will blame the GNU. Then Mtolo will need to say, no, they can't do this. Then Mtolo will hit hard. Then they exchange, such as one again, and all. But at the end of the day, we always lead to say, is it this necessary? If we see that this is not necessary, then we meet as leaders. And then on Monday we are meeting, and then I think we'll solve the matters of now. And as Shinganga was saying, that it's an isolated incident. It's not that the relationship of Nehau and the ANC, even in KZN, is a time low. It's one isolated incident. That's what he said, which I agree with him. But let's allow us to process these matters, and all that will overcome them. The alliance has gone through turbulence, you know it. Sometimes there will be heated moments, and we always overcome those things and become stronger.
The ANC has also established a task team that will conduct a membership audit and assist to rebuild dysfunctional branches. For SABC News, I am Jade Paulser in Durban.
The Progressive Caucus in Tshwane, led by the ANC, have confirmed that the planned motion of no confidence against the Tshwane Mayor, Celia Brink, has been temporarily withdrawn. The group made a U-turn after Brink approached the Pretoria High Court for an urgent interdict against the motion of no confidence planned for Friday. Several parties, including Action SA, the ACDP and the EFF, have confirmed their support for a motion against Brink.
The ANC and the DA in Tshwane exchanging pleasantries as another battle looms to remove yet another mayor in the capital city. But the DA has asked the courts to pause the battle to remove Celia Brink.
We decided to enter an urgent application at the Pretoria High Court, and the intention is to ensure that this motion doesn't serve.
The Progressive Caucus presented a united front saying the fight is not over.
Within a period of 2 weeks, we think we'll be able to come back and conclude the business.
We need each other, all of us, but if others want to think otherwise, we still have efficient numbers to soldier on with the battle. Remember, if Action SA withdraw, we are going to have 108, and then Action SA and then the DA is going to have 107.
Action SA and the ACDP, both parties that are in the multi-party coalition, have turned their back on Brink. They also want him out.
Our structures have made a decision. They told us, get out of the marriage with the DA. This marriage for us has been very, very brutal. And we want to say that our focus as Action SA is nothing else but the people on the ground. We need to take services to the people on the ground. We have suffered a lot, our townships have suffered a lot without services.
The DA was fixated on personality politics, trying to get me fired. The last letter that I ever received now recently was that previously I voted against the city manager, I voted against the deputy mayor. So I don't want to spend my time, or the ACDP, we don't want to waste time.
Mixed reactions from civil society on toppling Brink.
People want services. The people of Hammanskraal are crying out for water. The people of Tshwane as a whole are crying out for water. What is the sense of putting a motion of no confidence in the mayor of Tshwane? It is totally a waste of time. It is a self-interest that these people are pushing, and nothing has to do with the people of Tshwane.
When there is a change of mayorship, there is an instability. But currently in Tshwane,
under Celia Brink, there is instability already. So for us, it actually worked for us because we once told him that he's not our mayor as a resident. He's a mayor for the coalition. So for him to go, it actually benefits us because at least we'll have a way forward on many issues that are outstanding.
Brink has been Tshwane mayor since the end of March last year after succeeding the late Dr. Morunwa Makwarela, who succeeded Randall Williams, but he might be removed in 2 weeks from now, this as the Progressive Caucus in Tshwane have vowed to forge ahead with their motion of no confidence against Brink in 14 days. Patricia Fasage, SABC News in Pretoria.
Thank you very much for staying with us right here on the Week in Review. To this now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has requested a detailed report and briefing from Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Thembi Smelane following allegations of corruption levelled against her. In a statement, the President said he had noted the reports with concern. Various media reports over the weekend linked the Justice Minister with monies alleged to have been received improperly from the VBS Mutual Bank. This was during her tenure as Mayor of the Polokwane municipality. It is alleged that at the time Smelane was the mayor, the municipality unlawfully invested 349 million rands into VBS. Now, the president has called the minister for a brief on the matter. For more on this, we're joined by political analyst Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Prof, thank you very much for your time with us this afternoon. Quite a story this, isn't it? And so early on in this government of national unity, where big promises of things being done differently were made, the president is now sitting with some sort of a conundrum here as to what to do about the justice minister. She reported that the money was a loan and that she has in fact paid the money back. Is that good enough of an explanation in your view?
Of course not. I mean, President Ramaphosa's government, again, has been dealt with the blow in a big way because he ascended to the helm on a ticket of good governance. And when one of his own is accused of corruption, it begs the question about his commitment to fight against corruption. But also, I think the ruling party also has not been forthcoming in terms of dealing with the issue in question, because the ANC has been purporting to be on a mission to wage a war on corruption, and it does have a structure. I think it's the Integrity Committee that is meant to uncover, allegations of corruption against its members. So I've not heard anything in that regard in terms of the ANC demanding accountability from the minister in question. But over and above that, you're talking about a minister that is a political head of a very important ministry, which is the Ministry of Justice, meaning that she is the embodiment of that particular ministry. So I think in some quarters, these allegations, they do cast aspersions on her integrity. Of course, that doesn't mean that there is sufficient evidence as yet that she is at fault, but we cannot downplay the seriousness of these allegations.
This is another example, Prof, of the importance of journalism and investigative journalism in particular in this matter. Could there perhaps have been another forum for this issue to have been surfaced, right? Whether by the minister herself or through other means, to perhaps even indicate to the public that this VBS matter, given its sensitivity, given the profile of the individuals that have been harmed by what happened there, that this is a matter that is in fact taken seriously. Did it have to take journalists to really go through numbers and so on and connect dots in order for this matter to be surfaced?
I get the sense that there has been an attempt to sweep these allegations under the carpet, you know what I mean? Because these allegations, they cover a long period of time. I mean, the story broke, I think, in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And I think there should have been an attempt by the ANC to demand accountability from those who were accused of wrongdoing. The same goes to members of the Communist Party and so on. So I think it leaves much to be desired that not much has been done to uncover the truth about what had happened. And talking about a person who is very close to the president, who has served in his cabinet even before this one. But also I think it does give credence to the argument that the fight against corruption by the ANC is only done in theory, not in practice, or it depends which side of the fence you are sitting on.
Now, political parties have also weighed in on this matter. The economic freedom fighters have been rather vocal about its stance, very strong on its stance, and calling for the minister to step down. This is, of course, quite ironic, given how over really a lengthy period of time now, that many fingers have been pointing to now the former deputy president of the EFF, and this was through, of course, his brother, Brian Shivambu, as well. Suddenly, when it's somebody that's not part of their party, they seem to be the loudest so far, at least, to be calling for the minister to step down. What do you make of this?
Well, the EFF is one of the opposition parties that have a responsibility to hold the government of the day accountable. But I think it is also in a very compromised position, given the fact that there have been serious allegations leveled against some of its senior members. Of course, the other one has jumped ship. And the EFF has not addressed the issue fully, in my opinion. It has been very much dismissive. So it does come across to be applying double standards. You know, when it suits them, someone must resign from her position. But when it doesn't suit them, a person should hold on to the position that one has. So you see, double standards in that regard.
Well, we understand, of course, that as much as the Minister Smelane says that, in fact, she did pay back the funds for this loan, and the loan was towards the purchase or an investment towards purchasing a coffee shop, that we're yet to see any sort of evidence to show that she did, in fact, pay back the loan. But you put that issue aside. Surely, even if there is evidence that she's done that, she's heavily compromised here, again, given the sensitivity of this matter, her role at the time as mayor in Polokwane. Can you see a way out for Minister Smelane?
Of course not. Look, I mean, this is one of the worst scandals we've ever had since 1994. And I think the worst part of it is that if you look at the financial sector, it is dominated by 4 banks, ABSA, FNB, Nedbank and Standard Bank, and VBS was the only beacon of hope for the poorest of the poor. So with the bank now being declared as insolvent, it suppresses any call for any establishment of a black bank, which is quite sad. And I think the worst part of it, again, is that this accumulation has happened at the expense of poor people. But also, I mean, the ANC comes across not to be taking the fight on corruption seriously, because people have lost money. Some people now can't, access funds to, make sure that their businesses are up and running.
As a final one to you, Prof, on this matter, we of course are still watching how this matter develops. The most recent, perhaps, and most explosive, if you will, development around this was that affidavit from Matodzi. And of course, we're still watching very closely what will emerge from there onwards. There is, of course, the question that for the longer the minister remains in her portfolio, where she oversees public prosecutions, that there won't, in fact, be any action on this front for as long as that she is there. Then one would obviously then think that the sooner she's removed in some or other fashion, the better for the justice system, the better for also how this government of national unity is seen to be doing things differently.
Well, the burden of proof rests with the one that accuses. So I think the sooner the better for the evidence being ventilated in the court of law, so that facts can be separated from perceptions. But the slow pace of responsiveness of the ruling party has not done any good for itself. And also, I think President Ramaphosa has really done a good thing by demanding a report. Hopefully, he will make a good call in terms of determining whether the minister in question is fit and proper to hold on to her position or not.
And what is that good call in your view?
Well, if there is substantive evidence, then he needs to let go of the minister. I mean, it's as simple as that. But it is worrisome, the fact that she does acknowledge that, she did pay back the money. Because the question, what is the meaning of that? Because municipalities should not have invested at the bank in the first place. That is against the Municipal Finance Management Act.
Exactly. So if you're saying, well, let's wait for evidence, it's almost as though you're saying if she has a good enough reason, in fact, can produce evidence that she paid back the loan, that's good enough, let her continue being Minister of Justice? Surely not.
Look, all I'm saying is that at the moment we can just connect the dots. But I think we need to make sure that we argue from a very informed point of view. And that can only occur when the evidence comes through to the president. So I think, he needs to be applauded for the step that is taken in terms of demanding for the report. Subsequent to that, I think he will have no other way out but to let go of the minister on the basis of the report that he has.
So in your view, and I said a final one a moment ago, but this is the real final one. In your view, that mere doubt is not enough for the president to make a decision about the minister, that we need evidence. And also this is off the back of a very difficult period that the country is coming out of, the period of capture. There's still many question marks that remain there, still many more people that the country would like to see at least held to account in the courts and so on. After a very lengthy process, Chief Justice Zondo, it's his final day of being Chief Justice, dedicated a lot of time, a lot of money was spent throughout the process. So to be seen as though that we're quite lax about these issues still, even after going through all of that, is cold comfort for people who are hoping that indeed, finally, the country has entered a new period where it's no longer business as usual, and that those who have even perhaps the slightest questions on their conduct and on their judgment will in fact not be afforded very important positions, such as Minister of Justice.
Well, I concur with you that corruption is not just a buzzword, but it embeds itself both in the private sector and also in the public sector. And I agree with you that we're coming from an era of state capture, which is, institutionalization of corruption on a large scale. And some of the money that left the country has not been fully recovered. So the fight against corruption is something that cannot be taken lightly. But at the same time, I think we need also to take into account that people have rights, yes. And we should allow the process to unfold before any action is taken against someone.
Indeed. Indeed, and we hope it won't be too long a wait to find out what the president decides after he has in fact met with the Minister of Justice, Thembi Smelane. Let's park it there this afternoon, Prof. Thank you for your time. Political analyst, Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, joining us right here on the Week in Review. More after this, stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. A year since the devastating fire that claimed the lives of 76 people in Marshalltown, Johannesburg, there's been silence from the city of Johannesburg. This despite a commission of inquiry finding the city and its entities responsible for the cause of the early morning blaze. 3 months on, and the city is yet to respond to the commission's findings and report.
On the 31st August last year, a deadly inferno engulfed a building in the inner city of Johannesburg. It emerged that the 5-story building was one of the many hijacked buildings in the inner city, home to many internal and external migrants seeking new opportunities in the economic hub. In the aftermath of the fire, which claimed the lives of 76 people, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi appointed a commission of inquiry led by retired Justice Sisi Kampepe. After 7 months of hearings, phase 1 of the report was released, putting the blame at the door of the city of Johannesburg.
The city of Johannesburg and JPC never attended to repairs and maintenance of the building. The Usindiso building showed signs of disrepair and danger to life and property. It became liable to be demolished within the meaning of Section 12 of the Building Regulations and Building Standards Act of 1977. The report also finds that there was evidence of contraventions of the city bylaws by the city.
3 months later, and a change of administration, and still no response.
We're in a meeting with the officials. They had a responsibility to take me through one, the report by Usindiso and what is our response. So we are now working on developing a proper response which they are presenting to the mayoral committee, and we'll know what type of actions we must take. But it is also important, Alpha, to note that the challenges of the inner city are much bigger than we thought. And in fact, we require as much partnerships as possible.
The Premier had promised to establish a joint committee to ensure the implementation of the Commission's recommendations. This week, Lesufi reiterated this commitment, but there's been no action as yet.
In the State of the Province address, we made a commitment that we are convening a summit that would include the owners of these illegal buildings, formal owners, developers, law enforcement agencies, so that we formulate a charter and a way forward on how we're going to reclaim Johannesburg. And to do that, we need everyone.
The second phase of the Kampepe inquiry was aimed at looking into the prevalence of hijacked buildings. This was stalled due to logistical issues. Civic organizations have lambasted the slow pace.
It's crazy that the city doesn't act until there's some disaster. The second part of the commission, which has commenced now, is the commission inquiry is actually going around to certain buildings that have been identified by organizations like SIRI, who work very closely on the ground with these individuals in buildings, to inspect these buildings. They will then produce a report. I know that report is due at the end of August sometime, and that report will also go to the city. In the meantime, can the city be proactive? I don't think they can. Because just like with the report, they're waiting for somebody else to tell them what's wrong.
Earlier this year, Stembiso Lawrence Mlalosi confessed to starting the fire while trying to dispose of a body. He abandoned bail, and the matter has been cold for the last 7 months. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has lamented the state of Johannesburg Central Business District, describing it as an embarrassment and an eyesore that reflects poorly on South Africa's global image. Lesufi addressed the launch of a multi-stakeholder program yesterday, aiming to rejuvenate the city. The initiative includes enhancing lighting, security and the cleanliness in the city.
The Joburg CBD is synonymous with roads congested with informal traders, rubbish piles and rampant criminality. This has led to big companies relocating and finding alternative locations for their headquarters. To tackle this, Gauteng Premier, in partnership with the private sector and the city, have embarked on a program to rejuvenate Joburg.
From Boysons up until down to GB, we are deploying not less than 4,800 law enforcement agencies that will start to be patrolling 24 hours, day and night, because that's what we need to reclaim. We can bring investment here. If people are going to be marked, if people are going to be robbed, if people are going to be attacked, those investments will come to naught.
As part of the program, law enforcement agencies had successes in tackling lawlessness.
You know that we're launching our inner city revitalization program, and part of it also included law enforcement and crime prevention. And through this roadblock this morning, we have now arrested at least 10 undocumented Foreigners will therefore be processed and of course be deported home. Secondly, we are still looking and searching all the cars to find other criminal activities.
Pick It Up, City Power and NGO Josie My Josie are among stakeholders participating. They aim to turn things around for Joburg by beefing up security, claiming back hijacked buildings and fixing street lights and cleaning the streets.
With this new partnership, the total network of cameras that Vumacam will be rolling out will be 684 cameras within the inner city. And in the areas in which we have installed our network, we see a reduction in crime. We see great efficiencies in the way that the public sector policing are able to dispatch vehicles accordingly.
We must put our political differences aside. Let us work now for the betterment of the city and the citizens of Johannesburg.
Lesufi also urged residents to cooperate to ensure that Johannesburg becomes a more attractive city. Offenses Timo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Springboks New Zealand is rich history.
It's a rivalry between obviously us and Joburg, which is over 100 years old.
It's a rivalry that I don't think will ever end anytime soon.
Me being a Springbok, you want to play against the All Blacks, you want to face Saka.
A different feeling, a different intensity. I personally think that it's something special,
and it's always a big occasion. Doesn't matter where you play.
Rugby's greatest rivalry, Saturday 31 August on SABC2.
The Springboks are loath to ever want to accept the tag of favourites going into a showdown, but against the All Blacks in round 3 of the Rugby Championship in Johannesburg, they will be the odds-on favourites for the win. The Boks have confirmed that Eben Etzebeth will play from the bench, and that could prove the difference in the test match.
The Springboks realise that this is the type of match that will dictate the mood of the country on the Monday following the Saturday showdown. They accept the heavy responsibility of playing for South Africa, and as the captain Siya Kolisi underlined, the green and gold is playing for all of South Africa. Kolisi says his team thinks about things like that and uses it as motivation.
We're in a place of privilege, having the honour of representing the whole of South Africa, not just some people of South Africa, everybody in South Africa. And what you do with what you are gifted with, your talent, you can able to control somebody's moods on Monday. I know how nice it is for people on Monday to go in the office and talk about, how lucky the weekend was with the Springboks when they've won. So we think of all of that.
Eben Etzebeth's inclusion on the bench is a big boost. According to assistant coach Mzwandile Stick, it's because the Boks enforcer has not missed a training session this week and will be ready to go from the bench.
We wanted to give him a fair chance, from Monday, Tuesday, where he was training full out, and then also on Wednesday, so he didn't miss any training sessions, So there's no reason for us not to select him, and he's been looking good. So yeah, I think having him on the bench, I think he will bring probably a nice impact when it's needed.
The Springboks may well be the favourites going into this fixture, not something they are very comfortable with. And against their old foe, New Zealand, not something to ponder for even a second. Kolisi says that if the Boks want to get the better of the All Blacks, then they have to remember the history of the encounter, but also need to focus solely on the next match.
They've beaten us a lot of times. Some of us in this group have had 57-0 defeat that, we'll never forget that. So tomorrow is an important game for us, and we've got a lot to play for. And yeah, so that's all we've been focused on, is just tomorrow.
The Springboks have resisted the urge to tinker with the starting 15, knowing from experience that a win over New Zealand is a full matchday 23 effort. And the Bok bench is looking strong, particularly with Etzebeth sitting and waiting for his chance.
The game against the All Blacks, you're probably going to have to play until the last second of the game, and once again to have guys like Eben, and you look at the impact that we're looking for on the bench, the guys like Kwacha, So I think those are the guys that when they are needed, for that impact, I think they should be able to bring that impact in the game, but we won't make any changes. I think Peter Steph with Rwanda will start the game for sure.
The All Blacks are the team that the Boks beat in the final of the World Cup last year. This rivalry has never been about world rankings, but rather a mutual respect and is usually played out on the grandest of stages. Saturday's match at Ellis Park in Johannesburg should be no exception. Simon Burke, SABC News, Johannesburg.
It's going to be a good one. Kickoff is at 5 p.m. You're watching the Week in Review right here on the SABC News Channel 404. Do stay with us. We will continue with the headlines at the top of the hour. Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's term ends today. Limpopo sees a high number of women participating in traditionally male-dominated industries. Minister in the presidency, Marupene Ramakgopa, has called for more men to become involved in fighting the rising scourge of gender-based violence. Thank you very much for staying with us. Welcome to the second and final hour of the Week in Review. I am Sebenzile Ngambule, coming to you live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Remember, you can participate in the discussions by giving us a ring. Our studio line is 011-714 0680 0681 or 0682. Welcome. We start here in this hour. Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's term ends today. He served 12 years as a justice of the Constitutional Court. President Cyril Ramaphosa appointed Zondo as Chief Justice in the 1st of April in 2022. This followed the retirement of Zondo's predecessor, Mogoeng. 64-year-old Justice Zondo was appointed as a Constitutional Court judge by former President Jacob Zuma in August of 2012, but his appointment was effective from the 1st of September that same year. Zondo was later appointed Deputy Chief Justice by the former President in 2017. He was one of 4 candidates interviewed for the position of Chief Justice in February of 2022. His 12-year non-renewable term as an apex court judge is now ending. In terms of the Constitution, a Concord judge can serve a non-renewable term of 12 years or until the age of 70, whichever comes first. Justice Zondo is handing over the baton to the first female Chief Justice in the history of South Africa and of a democratic South Africa, Justice Mandisa Maya. With a high level of unemployment and saturated job markets, more women in South Africa are tapping into traditionally male-dominated industries. Over the last years, Limpopo has seen a high number of women participating in sectors such as the operation of heavy vehicles and machineries, as well as construction. As South Africa celebrates 30 years of democracy, we look at some of the women treading unfamiliar territory.
For 35-year-old Mukandangaro Mugari from Durban near Lutheran, bricklaying has become second nature. The mother of 5 had to ward off stereotypes and develop a thick skin on a path to becoming a bricklayer, seen as a trade that demands masculinity more than any other attribute. Mugari had to summon a great deal of courage to do what she loves. But abject poverty and a string of other challenges were a driving force behind Mugari's decision to venture into the sector. She's known for her quick and nimble hands, as well as an unwavering dedication to her job.
What made me venture into this construction is because I wanted to take care of my children, so that I should not be always asking from my siblings and family members. I do bricklaying as well as plastering.
Mugari's brother and mentor, Ngarizani Mugari, says she has been one of the most teachable of his students. When we are working with her, we can see she's dedicated, she's open-minded, and it's easy to guide her. Meanwhile, Mukandangaro Mugari has some advice for other women.
What I can say to my fellow women is that they should not be choosy when they are looking for a job. I always thought this job is very tiring until I did it, only to realize that it's just a regular job like any other job where one must be hands-on.
Tsakani Masia is the first black woman in Limpopo to design and build her own 4-star hotel. The 50-year-old construction mogul from Masia village near Thohoyandou owns several residential and business properties in the province. Masia started from humble beginnings as a blanket seller and a broiler chicken breeder. With her strong business prowess and brazen vision, she was able to narrow her focus to the construction sector, a decision that will catapult her into one of the most revered female construction and property developers in the country.
Throughout the journey, there were a lot of challenges. But what I did, I decided to do everything with integrity, principles, and resilience. I started building small projects. I started building bigger projects, and I started building a bigger student accommodation for ourselves before we were given a responsibility to build this hotel.
Masia has appealed to other women to come out of their shells and venture into the construction industry.
No matter how difficult things might be, don't give up. You know, for you to be successful or for you to be a greater person, you need to go through challenges. The best is just to do right when all is not right, and to focus, to do everything the way they should be done, to be resilient. You know, as women, there's nothing we cannot do.
According to some women, the challenges they face in the construction industry include the lack of support and mentorship from their male counterparts. They often face sexism, discrimination, and unequal remunerative packages, making it difficult for them to advance in their careers. Rutendo Bobori, SABC News, Thohoyandou.
Minister in the Presidency, Marupeni Ramakgopa, has called for more men to become involved in fighting the rising scourge of gender-based violence. Ramakgopa was speaking during the Free State Government's Provincial Women's Dialogue in Botshabelo. The discussion was aimed at addressing GBV and femicide as the country wraps up Women's Month.
Highlighting the plague of gender-based violence and femicide, a platform has been created to discuss this blight on society. The Provincial Women's Dialogue has asked women and men to unite.
People always think that when we talk about women emancipation, gender-based violence, or anything that has to do with gender, we talk about women. Gender is not women. Gender is a societal construct that includes all of us. That is why you'd have gender activists that are men as well. So we are calling upon all gender activists, most especially men, to come and join us and also lead us in making sure that we fight this scourge and we do it together.
Women who were part of the dialogue have pleaded with GBV perpetrators to stop.
Actually, today we are celebrating Women's Month. We've had enough GBV.
Women are abused, children are abused. We are no longer living freely.
The world is not a good place at all. We are always in fear.
With some sharing personal GBV experiences.
You know, some of the events such as this touch base with my past. I had a very good father, but quite an abusive father when it comes to my mother and women in general. And that I took a vow, lifetime, that the plight of women and children in this country will remain that which I'll fight against.
We agree that as this government, we're not going to allow any activity that will take place without raising the awareness on GBV. We are going to visit churches as we did during election campaigns. We are going to have street committees using the community structures, VD by VD. We agree that we are going to have these programs.
Government has promised to intensify efforts in fighting GBV and will be holding a major event on November 16th, where men are expected to feature prominently. Refile Mekwa, SABC News, Botshabelo.
Former President Jacob Zuma and the Umkhonto weSizwe Party's challenge of the SABC's use of the term Government of National Unity has been struck off the roll due to the lack of urgency in the South Gauteng High Court. The applicants, Zuma and the MKP, have been directed to seek a special allocation. The High Court judgment revealed that the court was not satisfied that the matter is urgent, nor that it is in the interests of justice to deal with this matter on an urgent basis. The court instead found that it should be dealt with as a special motion where a judge will have time to consider the papers and submissions without the pressures of an urgent court. The MK Party and Zuma asked the High Court to, amongst other things, declare the conduct of the SABC unconstitutional and invalid, claiming that it constitutes a breach of the public broadcaster's independence and public mandate. Zuma contends that what he terms as the current arrangement in South Africa as a result of normal and ordinary democratic outcomes does not fit the definitional elements of a GNU, alleging that the use of the term deliberately misleads the public. There are warnings that the SABC's funding constraints, if left unresolved, will an urgent existential crisis to the public broadcaster make. That's the sentiment of the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. This comes after the public broadcaster's leadership briefed the committee this week on various matters, including its performance and the 5-year turnaround plan.
We consider the SABC as a national asset, a strategic national asset. It is a very important state-owned company that cannot and will not be allowed to fail. The Portfolio Committee had called the leadership of the SABC, led by Minister Malatsi, to come and brief us. Firstly, in terms of the implementation of the turnaround strategy that the SABC had adopted, we wanted also to get insight into the progress that is being made in the dispute resolution process with Centec. As you indicated at the beginning, there is that 1 billion debt, but also the SABC is struggling under, I suppose, what they call the high signal distribution tariffs that Centec charges them. And then finally, we also wanted to have a look at, discuss and reintroduce through the minister the SABC bill back into Parliament. Now, what came out very clearly in those discussions that the SABC's financial situation is definitely an existential crisis for the organization. You have an SABC that is expected to firstly deliver on its public mandate. That mandate is not funded or not funded sufficiently. We have an SABC that expected to evolve and become a broadcaster of the future, using digital technologies, competing with over-the-top services, but still the funding is not enough. And you'll remember this is largely because we expected that public mandate to be financed largely through the license regime, the TV licenses. Now, it's not an exaggeration to say that that particular regime has failed. We have very high levels of non-compliance from the citizenry. We have a fiscus that's already straining, trying to fund other social services. So we said that this is an opportunity then. As the Portfolio Committee working together with the department, we must use the opportunity of the introduction of the SABC bill to look at how we can be more innovative in funding the public broadcaster moving forward.
Thank you for staying with us. To this now, according to the state capture reports, Brian Molefe, Siyabonga Gama, Lucky Montana and Mzwanele Manyi are all involved in corruption and misuse of funds. In spite of this, the Umkhonto Wesizwe Party has accepted them as new members of parliament. Following weeks of internal party strife, to remove members of parliament sworn in as party representatives in May, they were inducted into the legislature. The MK party has stated that it thinks it has the experience in public service to establish itself as a strong primary opposition, and that these new members are bound to make the party better. Political expert Prof. Dirk Coetzee joins us now to explain what this means. A very good afternoon to you, Prof. Coetzee, and welcome to the Week in Review. Very familiar faces that we saw being sworn into Parliament this week. Familiar names as well when you also think about the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. But here they are now as members of the MK Party, members of Parliament as well. What do you make of this development? And particularly for voters who, of course, didn't see any of these names on that list that was submitted by the MK Party to the IEC because they just weren't there. And now suddenly, out of nowhere, some parties are then removed. Some individuals are removed from representing the party within Parliament, and then these individuals are sworn in.
Yes, I think this poses quite a complication for the public, for the voters, in order to how they look at the MK Party. MK Party, as you presented it now, has their own view, and that is that the members who were elected to Parliament were not sufficiently prepared for Parliament. They don't have the experience, they don't have the public profile, and therefore they went now for these persons that you have mentioned. I think as from a more of a democratic point of view, and in terms of electoral democracy specifically, there was each of the parties were supposed to submit a list of candidates, and we as the voters voted by implication for that list of candidates. What we have now is that many of those that were on that list actually won't be in Parliament or have been removed, and these 15 or 18 who have been there and replaced with persons who have not been at all involved in the election. So in that sense, I think from a public perspective, from a public confidence perspective, I think there will be serious questions about this. Over and above the fact that, as you indicated, they featured very prominently in the Zondo Commission report. We saw them when they were appearing before the Commission, and all the complications and the way in which they have been very directly associated with state capture. So I think for those persons who want to move, that South Africa must move past the period of state capture, that there must be a recovery, a renewal, a revitalization, a more of an improvement of the quality of the public sector in general, that the integrity of persons there must be above board. This is going in exactly the opposite direction. So the question will be, for example, in 2 years' time, what is the public then going to say for MK? Do they still support them despite these tendencies that have been created? Or is it the brand of MK and President Zuma's association with that, which is actually the decisive factor?
In a moment, we'll perhaps just go deeper into their alleged, involvement in state capture and being implicated there through that state capture commission. But talking about the process through which these members of parliament, now in fact dismissed 15 members of parliament that represented the MK party, and I suppose what sort of recourse could be there for them? Many of them, if they had jobs previously, would have had to let go of that, change their lives, move to Cape Town, of course, looking to serve for the duration of this particular term of Parliament, and then suddenly they are just removed like that. What does it actually say about the country, our own democratic processes, when it seems as though somebody can just wake up on any given day, dismiss people and bring in whoever they want into Parliament?
Yes, unfortunately, the way in which proportional representation works is that it gives a lot of powers to the parties. Because, again, in this election, we voted for the parties. We didn't vote for individual candidates. Although we know behind the scenes there are these lists of candidates, but when it came to the vote per se, it was for a political party. So political parties do have the right to recall members from the different positions, and it can be at national, provincial, or local government level. So that is because of this electoral system. But it is not, they can't do it at any time, at any moment, in any way. There are certain procedural rules and it must go through the IEC, the Electoral Commission, that can do this. How the MK got through all of that is still a miracle for me, that they could have done it so quickly after the election, because normally a party can do it only once a year. And I think what they have done now is already in this short space of time, they've done it more than once. Because it is other persons who, like, for example, Judge Sloppy, he was also not on the original list, and they had to change these lists for him to come in. So these are very technical matters, but I think very often the Parliament and the IEC, to a large extent, allowed this to happen because political parties are in such dominant positions in the proportional representation system. But I think for the public, it creates the perception of chop and change, of high levels of rotation, that it is not anymore about the individuals and their qualities, but it's all about the political parties and the interest of those parties, and then the top leadership of those parties. And I think especially for a new party like MK, it has to establish its credentials also in Parliament. It has to a large extent done it in a province like KwaZulu-Natal. But now it must establish itself as part of the parliamentary processes. And if it does this, and there's a high volatility when it comes to its membership in Parliament, it does not create that confidence that it needs, as well as the fact that it is taken seriously as a party for the future.
Mm. The MK party seemingly is positioning itself as a home for once very prominent and liked and respected individuals who are perhaps now are living under a cloud of scandal, who have had the integrity questioned, for them to now find a home, to re-emerge in the eye of the public. What do you make of that particular strategy? I mean, but we're also talking here about becoming members of parliament. It means that you are lawmakers, and the expectation for all 400 members is that they, if anything, rise above petty party politics and in fact represent the entire country, and that these are credible individuals who are highly experienced, but also are individuals with very high integrity. Is that what we're seeing of the people who have now made their way into parliament? And of course, not only from the MK party, other political parties have had their own issues as well. The Democratic Alliance bringing in individuals who have made very problematic and at times racist, in some instances, misogynistic comments on social media, and they become members of parliament. And quietly, so they being brought into the system. We saw not too long ago as well, the ANC swearing in now former member of parliament and former Minister of Sport, Zizi Godwa. But the fact that he was even sworn in and then had to step back as well says that there isn't a hard and fast rule, seemingly, about the caliber of person who is seen as fit and proper to become a lawmaker in the Republic.
Yes, I think you summarized it very well, that there are serious problems still with the way in which political parties identify their candidates. We've seen that some parties have started to make it more transparent. There's, for example, selection processes. It's not simply a nomination process by the branches and that it then goes up to ultimately the national level, but that in some cases people can even apply for these positions. Then they must go through a thorough selection procedure. The ANC has introduced some aspects of that now, the DA also, but it's not yet foolproof yet, because there's also some political considerations in the end. And I think this is the complication, that persons are sometimes identified purely because of who they know or what their political history in a party is, or what their influence in a particular area, how they have developed an impact on politics within for example, their own local area where they are, or in a province or so. And these, unfortunately, still are very prominent factors that determine the membership. If it has been something like, for example, a constituency-based system, then it would have been very different, because then the choice ultimately was that of the voters, who the person is, and not that of the political parties. And I think this is where the debate that has developed about independent candidates or individual candidates is partly as quite a lot of merit. A new panel has been established now by the Minister of Home Affairs that must report within a year in order to re-look at the electoral system as it is at the moment, or this one that we've introduced for the past election. So there are opportunities also from a formal side, from a legislative side, in order to improve and try to prevent these sometimes, one can almost say, abuses of the positions of members of parliament. But this is something where part of it is that the public must ultimately also, and civil society organizations, have that right to be able to mobilize against individuals who are clearly not appropriate to be in parliament. And I think political parties will possibly become more sensitive about it as these changes in the electoral system is also implemented over time.
Despite all of these issues around Molefe, Gama and Montana, they've all defended the leadership of three of the state's most troubled parastatals, or very troubled parastatals, and I suppose in their defense as well. And they'll say, well, what have we been found guilty of? And until then, in fact, we have every right to represent the political party, to be, of course, appointed as well, to become members of parliament. They, in fact, have been implicated in capture and graft, believed to have occurred between 2009 and 2018 as well. Where would you locate perhaps a failure in answering some of these question marks, if you will, Prof, around these individuals and others who have been implicated or have allegations against them related to state capture or some other dodgy dealings? Is it a function perhaps of the very, very slow wheels of justice turning? It was a very expensive exercise, the State of Capture Commission, and perhaps many aspects still to be answered there. It went on for about 4 years as well, and thousands of pages later in a report from the Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, and still, there's still more questions than answers here. Is it a failure in the justice system, or is there a bigger societal problem here that individuals who even with the slightest question about their conduct aren't prepared to say, I'm not fit to become a lawmaker in this country, or let's allow processes to unfold before I re-emerge in the public eye?
Well, I think, first of all, when it comes to the Zondo Commission, they have done their job. They have completed that. So it is very much in the hands of the criminal justice system to follow on. Now, we've seen some problems now, for example, between the National Prosecuting Authority and the Department of Justice about access to this information and to the evidence that they've collected over time. So there are internal between the sometimes not the cooperation that's necessary for this to happen. And so that's the one side of it. I think the other side of this is that, and we've seen it now with the President Zuma's possible candidature for them as member of parliament, is that the Constitution does provide some guidelines, but it is very particular. It is just about persons who have been already sentenced, and in some cases, and then have already actually been released, but not within for a longer period than 5 years. So it's a very limited application of aspects that deals with possible criminal offences, possible indictments, possible sort of convictions that persons have had. But it doesn't really deal with, I would say, the more moral aspects. So it's a very positivistic approach that's being used. While the moral requirements for a person to say, if I've been, and that is what the ANC has started to do is to say, even if you have not been found guilty yet, but just been charged, then you must step aside. Now, there's not something similar, for example, when it comes to become a member or a candidate for a member of parliament. And I think those are some of the aspects that hopefully will be a consequence of this debate about President Zuma's question of whether he qualified as a member of parliament or not. That's something that I personally feel is outstanding. And given our history of the so-called state capture, of the 9 years of state capture, that maybe we will have to respond to that also in the way in which it affects the membership of parliament. Because we are seeing that there are members, as you indicated, but also within the ANC still, who are even now part of the cabinet and deputy ministers, who have also been identified in the Zondo Commission. And nothing is happening. They are there. And unfortunately, we don't have a culture in South Africa amongst public representatives to resign if something happens, or to say, well, I'm not fit at this point in time to serve there. They have to be disqualified by others before they will withdraw.
Do these issues, Prof, matter though to the electorate? If we think about the performance of the MK party at the general elections as well, for those perhaps who may have erroneously dismissed them, would have gotten quite a shock that they were able to emerge as the third largest party in the country. We just saw now recently in by-elections as well, them winning Ward 45 in the Free State as well. They've been able to bring in influential individuals, at least in terms of popularity. Former Deputy President of the EFF now joining and being a national organizer for the MK party. They still believe that they can work the ground, that they can in fact grow the party, set up proper structures, and of course steal voters from elsewhere as well. Seemingly then issues of tainted individuals leading the party or representing the party in places like Parliament, maybe they don't entirely matter to the electorate, or do they?
No, they do. I think what we are seeing about MK is one component of our total political landscape, but it's certainly not representative of everything. For example, I live in a ward where there has been here in Tshwane, where there has been a by-election, and MK stood here and they almost didn't receive any votes. And it includes places like Sunnyside and so on, where potentially they could have had support. So one has to be careful. The most of the support of MK is in KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga, and then 9% of Gauteng. So the rest of the country has very little of a visibility in terms of MK. So one needs to have a comprehensive view of what is actually happening. I think what is the case is that MK, to a large extent, consolidated what was at some stage called within the ANC the Radical Economic Transformation faction or group, whatever you want to call them. But they have now been consolidated to a large extent in controversies, as well as a very significant group of former ANC members of KwaZulu-Natal, as I indicated. So it's a combination of that. But I will be surprised if they are going to grow significantly in the next national and provincial elections in 5 years' time. And whether they will not have a similar type of situation as the EFF, that they grew initially quite significantly and then reached a ceiling. And my suspicion is that will apply to them also. So one has to be careful to make now already a sort of a pronouncement or raise expectations that they are the new kid on the block and that they are going to grow substantially in the next number of years. The first real test for them will be in 2 years' time with the local government election, because that will require not only public mobilization, but mobilization at the local level within wards. And parties that are not very well established struggle to do that. And we know that MK does not have a party infrastructure, really. They don't have any elected leaders. They have just now 7 that have been identified as the National High Command. and in some places branches. But to become a real feature for the future, they must become a well-established, institutionalized political party. Otherwise, they won't be able to continue further. So they have been very successful with this election. No one can deny that.
Yeah.
And they have, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, they made a major impact on the political landscape and affected both the ANC and the EFF. That's where the EFF actually lost most of their votes in this election.
We'll have to park it there this afternoon. Thank you very much, political analyst Professor Dirk Cotter, talking to us about the newly sworn-in members of parliament representing the MK party. Stay with us. More on the other side of this. Thank you for staying with us to this now. Deputy Transport Minister Tshwane has paid a visit to the site of the tragic bus accident in Revitalizing in Limpopo, where 10 Zimbabwean citizens lost their lives. The accident occurred on Tuesday, just before midnight, when the bus overturned on the N1 highway. The bus was en route from Bulawayo, Zimbabwe to Johannesburg. SABC News reporter Kokecho Mutao has more.
The Deputy Minister of Transport, Tshwane, visited the accident scene accompanied by the Zimbabwean High Commissioner to South Africa and other senior officials. The delegation included representatives from cross-border road transportation and road safety agencies. 10 people died, including a 2-year-old girl. Authorities say the bus driver lost control of the vehicle after speeding over a roundabout, causing the bus to overturn. The Deputy Minister also went to Revitalizing Hospital to see the injured commuters.
We've come here to understand the set of circumstances which have characterized this accident, and it is quite clear that a lot of work needs to be done. We are awaiting a preliminary report tomorrow from the RTMC, which we dispatched here yesterday and has been investigating. We can safely say now that we can attribute the accident to driver error, but the report will speak to that and the circumstances thereof.
Deputy Minister Tshwane has expressed concern regarding individuals who declined medical attention and refused hospital admission following the bus accident, sparking worries about their safety and if they are properly documented.
We've got passengers who refused to actually have treatment administered on them, and they went on to take another bus which we suspect may have been in breach of the permit and license of that bus from the same company to take passengers here. So we have to understand then what we are dealing with, because amongst others this now involves South Africa and Zimbabwe, and there's the key issue of the repatriation of the deceased.
The Zimbabwean government says it is actively engaging with the families of the victims, providing them with official information and support regarding their loved ones who passed away in the accident.
The process of identifying and informing the families, it's a process. We are right now in contact with the families back home in Zimbabwe in trying, firstly, we have to ascertain the identities of those who are in the mortuary, and then thereafter we procedurally inform the close families back in Zimbabwe. I can advise you that so far 2 have been positively identified by their relatives.
The government of Zimbabwe says it will embark on a mass repatriation once it's done with the process of identifying the deceased. I'm Kokecho Matau, SABC News, Revitalizing.
The KwaZulu-Natal Department of Transport says it's reduced the backlog of taxi operating licenses. In the past years, the province had the highest number of unprocessed taxi licenses in the country. Taxi body Santaco says it's working with transport officials to resolve the challenges in the industry.
In May, disgruntled taxi operators brought the Durban CBD to a standstill. They were demanding operating licenses which they claimed were not being issued timeously by the Department of Transport, leading to law enforcement agencies impounding the vehicles. Taxi operators have for years raised concerns around delays in the issuing of operating licenses. In a meeting with the industry's role players, both the government and Santaco claimed that all permits have been issued to operators who qualify.
There are those people who are working within the taxi industry whom we do not want to give permits. And we must emphasize that we will not be giving permits to those people who are coming into association by force. Because associations are telling us that even though so-and-so is working in our association, but it is not us who have allowed him to become a member. He's here by force, and we'd want the assistance of the department subs to get rid of those. So those people will not get permits.
Not the reality that the bottleneck has always been with the department. The reality is that the taxi association, they know the reality that those who does not have the permit, those who do not qualify to have a permit, they don't have a permit. And all those with roadworthy, with proper permits, with all the processes from the municipality, from the association, did qualify, have the permit as we speak.
Operators have also raised safety concerns over so-called forums that want to take over taxi routes forcefully. This leads to tensions and, in some instances, conflict in the industry.
We have a problem with people calling themselves forums in our industry, and this is all over the province. They just use this industry as a scapegoat because they have other interests. Even us, we are not safe in this industry because of them, people that are known.
Provincial Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Ntantla Mkhwanazi, who has been working closely with the industry to resolve some of its challenges, have urged taxi operators to report cases of intimidation and acts of violence to police.
For those stoppages, if there are any stoppages that happens when people are stopping taxis from operating, we urge those that are becoming victims to approach the police and report, because the police might not necessarily know that these taxis will stop from operating or these buses will stop from operating. It is the same as in the construction environment. If people come in and they stop from operating, you have to approach the police. So we always encourage people to speak out so that we can act with speed.
Transport officials and the leadership of Santaco have committed to visit all taxi ranks in the province to engage with operators on issues that are affecting their operations. Londi Khatebe, SABC News, Durban.
Economic Freedom Fighters leader Julius Malema has challenged President Cyril Ramaphosa on his promise to deliver 1 million houses to Alexandra residents. Malema says the president has to admit it if he made a mistake. Ramaphosa in turn apologized to Malema for creating the impression that 1 million houses will be built in Alexandra. He said it's not possible to build this number of houses in the area because there is not enough land to do so. Ramaphosa explained that he meant the houses will be built around the country to address the housing backlog.
President, it is leadership to admit when you have made a mistake. You can't come here and say you never promised the people of Alexandra 1 million houses. You said so. You said you are going to build 1 million houses for the people of Alexandra. And knowing you being a legally trained person, like you said, you are not an illiterate who just speaks without knowing what he's speaking about. And being a president, before you take a stage, your back office would have given you the necessary information which is relevant to this place where you are. So it is important that today you admit that you made a mistake, because those people are dying. Some of them stayed at Stretla, and as a result, that land is not for human settlement. And when you created that impression, a lot of expectation was made. We're dealing with human beings here who've got feelings. And when a president speaks, they've got their expectation, high, because they know it's not a lesser authority speaking. Our fighter was killed, Moshe Mphatlele, in Alexandra, fighting for people to occupy the containers, rightful people to occupy the containers. Because of that daily struggle of housing, in Alex. Now we have lost our honorary commissar during the battle for occupation of these containers. In his honor, and in the honor of the poorest, people who are sleeping with the rats, people who are staying in places where there is no proper sanitation and water, in their honor, I think it is a correct thing to say, I'm sorry, I've made a miscalculation, and I said 1 million houses instead of 40,000 houses. Because to say you have not said it, you are now becoming a professional politician who can just say this today and turn against it tomorrow, and it's business as usual. So,
Honourable
with
Malema,
little
you have
resource
to
left,
conclude.
with the little numbers that you have now, maybe this will help you to regain some confidence. And Alexander, thank you.
In addressing precisely the point that you are making, we took care to go back to that recording and listened to it. And I had a number of people in my office listening to it and interpreting it because ke boletse ka Sepedi, ka bolela, and to the extent, Honorable Malema, that it created this impression that I said 1 million houses for Alexander, which objectively would not be possible anyway, because we just don't have the land there to build the 1 million houses. And to the extent that it created that impression, yes, I will say I apologize for having made people believe that I meant for Alexander. What I really meant was, yes, we would want to build 1 million houses for the whole country. And as it turned out, of course, we never really reached even that target because of a whole number of issues. We succeeded in building, during the MTSF, we succeeded in building 240,000 houses, which is way below what we had wanted. And there are many reasons around the country why we have not been able to reach our targets. And these are things that we do need to correct, because in some cases there's been underspending. Money has been laid out, and the entities that are supposed to build those houses often do not do so, and the money is returned. And the issue of Alexander is quite complex and has been so for years. And we've had a number of initiatives that were put in place, but I do believe that, Honorable Malema, with some of the initiatives that I've spoken about, we will be able to make progress. The living conditions of our people in Alexandra are really, truly appalling. And I should say that it's not only Alexandra, it is in a number of informal settlements, which one sees as one goes around to visit our people. And you can see that they live with rats, they live where there are no facilities, and this imposes a huge responsibility on us as government to improve the living conditions of our people. This is precisely what we are committed to doing as the 7th administration.
The only surviving leader of the 1956 Women's March, Sophie de Bruyn, has been honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award for being a phenomenal leader who, along with other women, fearlessly fought against apartheid pass laws. De Bruyn received the Motsepe Foundation's Shining Light Award in Houghton in Johannesburg. The awards aim to unite and recognize outstanding women in leadership roles. De Bruyn shared her personal intentions leading up to the call to take a stand and petition against the unfair laws of the apartheid regime.
On the 9th of August 1956, Sophie de Bruyn and other women of color stood tall against the apartheid government and fought for the liberation of the next generation. The women marched to the union buildings to fight against past laws. De Bruyn encouraged women to continue the fight in the workplace in order for economic transformation to take place.
In conclusion, I wish to applaud and to congratulate and commend the young generation of present activists those who are amongst us today, and even the ones who are not present as well, who have accepted the baton handed over to them and are running with it. Their noble and generous work is a fitting contribution, not only for themselves, but for those around them.
Other women honored with the Shining Light Awards include the founder of Farmer's Choice, Andile Matukane. She appealed to the older generation to continue to nurture young women and mentor them through their challenges.
She played a huge role for us women, and we're so grateful for that. And I believe that with a lot of women who are looking into entering the space, I always say it simply starts with one seed, which simply means you can start with whatsoever that you have or whatsoever that you need to do, just that one seed for you to start.
Mutsipe Foundation says women need to stick together.
The research that she has done does show that there is an increase of women who are going into tertiary institutions, women going into business, but she's also showed that women are less likely to start their own businesses because they don't have confidence in themselves, for instance, that they do not necessarily have easy access to finance, that because of the challenges of balancing, bringing up children and managing their homes.
The event aims to reflect and remember the women who paved the way to a free and democratic South Africa. Watinta bafazi, watinta mbogodo. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. Lerato Makula, SABC News in Johannesburg.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of the Week in Review. We end off on a somber note, though, with the news, as you would have seen now, of the passing of celebrated poet Jessica Mbangeni, as well as radio legend, media personality Thabiso Tshwane as well. We'll continue to bring you more on those very sad news of the passing of these two incredible women. Do join us again tomorrow right here at noon on the SABC News Channel 404. Until then, and from the rest of the team right here from Studio 11, take care.